You stand before it, the gate that has loomed in your life longer than you can remember. Iron bars stretch into the sky like skeletal fingers, rust bleeding down their sides as if even time itself tried to corrode its authority and failed. The air around it feels heavy, not with chains, but with the unspoken rule that this place is not for you. You were taught to wait outside, to obey the invisible command that access is granted only by those who hold power. But you can feel it, can't you? That quiet sickness in your chest each time you were told to stay small, each time you swallowed your questions and bowed your head. It was never humility, it was indoctrination, and the gate stood there, feeding on your silence. They said opportunity would come if you proved yourself worthy. They said doors would open once you earned the right to walk through them. But years passed, and still you waited, and still nothing moved. What you didn't realize was that the gate itself was a weapon. It was not there to protect anything valuable. It was there to make you forget you already carried the strength to pass. The betrayal is sharp when you see it clearly. You were never locked out. You were conditioned to believe you needed permission. That conditioning became your leash, and every time you obeyed it, the walls grew taller in your mind, even though in truth they were paper thin. Look closely. The surface is cracked. The metal hums with age, as though mocking its own illusion of permanence. You notice the shadows at its base, not guards, not enemies, just your own reflection staring back at you, hollow-eyed, waiting for approval that will never come. The silence here is deafening. It doesn't protect, it suffocates. The gate survives because you stand still. It feeds on your hesitation, on the belief that your place is on the outside. That belief is the lock. That belief is the chain. And now you feel something shift inside you, subtle but undeniable. Doubt still lingers, whispering like an old ghost. Do not touch what isn't yours. But another voice, buried and almost forgotten, answers with a single truth. What is yours cannot be withheld. The clash between these voices burns in your chest, one pulling you backward into the safety of obedience, the other dragging you forward into a darkness that feels strangely like freedom. You are caught in the tension of both worlds, the loyal subject and the hidden sovereign. The gate does not move, but you do. For the first time, you lean forward, and the silence fractures. The air tastes different, electric, heavy with the possibility that everything you've been told was a lie. You realize this is not about entry, it is about transformation. You are not standing before a gate. You are standing before the reflection of every limit ever whispered into you. And somewhere, deep beneath the rust, something ancient waits for you to decide whether you will remain a prisoner of belief or step closer and make the impossible collapse. You step closer, though your body betrays you. Muscles tense, breath shallow, the sound of your own heartbeat louder than the silence that surrounds the forbidden threshold. The air feels different here, heavier, as if the walls themselves are aware of your intrusion. Doubt speaks first, not in words, but in that suffocating weight pressing against your chest. You shouldn't be here. It whispers like a priest of order, demanding submission. You remember the voices that shaped you, the rules drilled into your marrow since childhood. Wait your turn, earn your place, seek approval. Yet, as you linger at the edge of the unknown, another presence rises inside you, quieter, older, not a voice of instruction, but one of inheritance. It doesn't plead, it doesn't warn, it simply reminds belonging is never given. It is taken. That sentence shatters something. You realize how long you've waited for an invitation that was never coming. How many nights you wasted convincing yourself that the gate was sacred, that someone else held the key. The betrayal burned, not from the guardians outside, but from within, from your own obedience to illusion. You see it now, the cruel trick. The walls are not built of stone, but of hesitation. They were never protecting anything. They were only testing if you would dare to disobey. You reach out, fingertips brushing cold metal, expecting alarms, punishment, exile. But nothing happens. The silence holds. The gate does not resist you, it only waits. And in that waiting you see the truth the world never planned to stop you. It only hoped you would stop yourself. Fear tries to anchor you again, hurling visions of failure, of humiliation, of being seen as an intruder. But with each image, your defiance grows sharper. You see the faces of those who waited forever and turned to dust. You will not join them. You push. The sound is not thunderous, not violent. It is softer, almost anticlimactic, a hinge groaning, a sigh released after centuries of tension. Yet that sound is louder than any explosion. It is the sound of trespass, the moment a prisoner stops believing in the jailer's power. For the first time, you feel the shift inside your chest, that flicker of dangerous freedom, the kind that no authority can return to you once you taste it. You step forward, and the darkness swallows you. The old world vanishes behind your back, shrinking into memory. Ahead lies uncertainty, but also possibility. Your heart races, not from fear now, but from recognition. You were never meant to wait. You were meant to move, to take, to trespass. And in that trespass, you discover the truth that changes everything. There was never permission to seek, only power to claim. You expected change. You expected resistance, alarms, the kind of punishment reserved for trespassers who dared to step beyond their assigned place. Instead, you find silence, and in that silence, scattered across the floor like forgotten relics, lie the fragments of a hidden architecture, blueprints inked in shadows, diagrams of doors within doors, instructions no one was supposed to see. They are not written in the language of kings or priests. They are crude, smudged, imperfect, but real. And suddenly you understand the lock you feared never existed. The gate was theater, a performance staged to convince you of your own captivity. Every line drawn on those brittle papers whispers betrayal. The world told you that power was earned only through permission, through years of waiting, through bowing your head at the proper altars. Yet here, in this unguarded chamber, you hold proof that others already walked this path before you, without blessing, without sanction. They left instructions not out of kindness, but necessity, because survival required invention, not obedience. These blueprints are not doors into palaces. They are exits from prison. And you realize with a slow, aching clarity that the walls around you were designed not to protect, but to domesticate. You run your fingers over the faded lines, tracing paths through hidden corridors and secret passageways. They do not promise safety, they promise struggle. But struggle is different when you see the structure for what it is. Before, you felt trapped in a labyrinth with no map. Now you see every curve, every angle, every weak point disguised as strength. What once looked like an impenetrable fortress reveals itself as fragile, almost laughable in its construction. The authority you feared depended entirely on your ignorance. The air shifts colder now, heavier with a kind of ancient weight. You sense that these designs were never meant for you. They were buried, concealed, left behind as warnings. To hold them is to inherit the same danger the architects once carried. The watchers you felt outside the gate, perhaps they are not flesh at all, but echoes of every hand that dared sketch these diagrams. You feel them watching through the parchment, daring you to continue, daring you to accept what the blueprints imply, that permission was always a myth, that the true crime is not trespassing but believing you ever had to ask. Your pulse slows, not with fear, but with the clarity of one who has glimpsed the machinery behind the curtain. You see now that doors are illusions, locks are lies, and gates dissolve the moment you stop bowing to them. You clutch the fragile pages, and something inside you hardens into steel. There is no going back to ignorance, no return to waiting. The blueprints are not just instructions, they are mirrors, forcing you to recognize the truth you tried to bury. You were never a guest in this world. You were always the uninvited architect. And now, with every step, you are rewriting the design itself. You begin in silence, not the comforting silence of peace, but the heavy silence that suffocates, thick, unbroken, filled with shadows that seem to lean closer with every breath. No one applauds you here. No one even knows you are alive in this space. The world outside believes you wait like they do, obedient and patient, bound by rules carved into stone by unseen hands. But you have already betrayed their expectation. You did not wait. You did not kneel. You touched the forbidden blueprints, and now you are reshaping them in darkness. Your hands tremble, but it is not fear. It is the raw vibration of power rediscovering itself. The materials are crude, incomplete, stolen from those who vanished before you. Yet as you arrange them, something impossible happens. Fragments connect where they shouldn't. Symbols glow faintly where ink has long faded. And suddenly you realize that creation was never meant to be clean or sanctioned. Creation is violence, the breaking of patterns, the tearing open of silence to let something new breathe. You are not here to beg for the tools. You forge them with what little you have, and in that act the shadows bend, as if they too recognize a force awakening in their midst. Doubt claws at you, whispering that none of this will work, that you are wasting time in darkness when you should be searching for light. But you know now that light is a trick, a performance staged by those who fear the dark because they cannot control it. You choose the opposite path. You hammer in obscurity. You write in secrecy. You build in the place they told you nothing could grow. The silence becomes your alley, cloaking your steps, disguising your fire. You realize this is not weakness, this is strategy. And with every piece you construct, you feel yourself splitting apart. The person who once waited, who once believed in permission, grows more distant, fading like a ghost behind glass. In their place rises something harder, sharper, unyielding. The darkness does not merely conceal you, it reshapes you, forging your skin into armor, your thoughts into blades. You begin to hear rhythm in the shadows, like an ancient drum echoing from forgotten caverns, and it tells you what you already sensed. Survival has always belonged to those who dared to build in silence. By the time the creation is complete, you are no longer the same. You do not cradle it gently. You do not present it as an offering to the world. You clutch it as a weapon, a key carved from rebellion itself. You do not need light to prove it exists. You feel it pulse, alive, in your grip. For the first time, you understand the truth they worked so hard to bury. Power is not granted. It is engineered. And those who create in the dark are the ones who will never again bow to gates, or to the illusions of those who claim to guard them. The silence fractures. What once felt like solitude now feels like surveillance, as though every step you've taken in the dark has awakened something ancient. You don't see them, not fully, but you sense them. The weight of unseen eyes pressing against your skin. The prickle of attention that no longer lets you hide. They are not human in the ordinary sense. They are the sum of every authority you've ever bowed to, every voice that told you to wait your turn, every law that conditioned you to shrink. They stir now, not because you broke the rules, but because you revealed how fragile those rules truly are. Your body tightened. Fear is still there, humming in your bones, but it no longer chains you. It sharpens. The watchers feed on obedience, on hesitation, on the silence of those who surrender before they even strike. But tonight you are not silent. You breathe, steady and deliberate, and the air itself seems to change around you. What once felt like walls now feels like a stage, and you realize they have been watching not to punish you, but to measure whether you would dare to keep moving forward. You feel betrayed, not by them, but by the system that taught you they were invincible. The Watchers are guardians of illusion, reflections of your own conditioned weakness, their power derived from the shadows you once called authority. But the moment you see them clearly, they flicker. Their faceless masks crack, revealing only emptiness where you once imagined strength. This is their greatest secret. They need you to believe in their dominion more than you need them to exist. Without your fear, they dissolve. Without your hesitation, they lose shape. Yet still they gather. You hear them in the corners of the unseen, a shuffle of movement, a breath that is not your own, a coldness that lingers like chains forged centuries ago. You do not run. Running would only prove their dominion. You stand knowing the truth, and it terrifies them. Power, you realize, has never belonged to the Watchers. It belongs to the one who refuses to kneel. This moment is not a battle of swords, but of perception. They will try to convince you you've gone too far, that you have trespassed into forbidden ground. They will whisper doubts in your own voice, replaying every failure, every wound, every moment you thought you were too small to matter. But now you see the pattern. You hear the repetition. You recognize the strategy. The Watchers are not your executioners. They are your test. And so you move forward. Each step defies them. Each breath unravels their hold. The fear remains, but it no longer rules you. It fuels you. For the first time you realize the truth. The eyes that stalk you are powerless without your consent. You have shifted from hunted to hunter, from trespasser to creator. The Watchers stir, yes, but it is not your end they witness. It is their own. You always thought the gate was guarded, that behind the silence, behind the walls, someone powerful was watching, deciding whether you were worthy enough to be allowed inside. Every hesitation, every moment of waiting was proof that you believed in them more than you believed in yourself. And yet, when the clash finally came, when the air split open and the Watchers appeared, you saw something you weren't supposed to see. Their faces were not carved from stone or steel. They were shadows of your own fear, masks stitched from your obedience. They were never warden. They were reflections, patient and cruel, waiting for you to hand them authority. The betrayal was subtle. Not from them, but from the belief you carried like a chain. You had trusted the lie that permission was sacred, that access was something handed down from a faceless throne. But as you stood against them, something fractured. The silence around you cracked like glass, and through it came a realization so sharp it burned you. You had been kneeling before nothing. The locks you feared were illusion. The keys you waited for were already in your blood. The barriers were rituals, performed not by them, but by you every time you chose to wait instead of move. You feel it now, a shift violent and undeniable. The weight you thought was pressing down from above was rising out of your own chest. The Watchers dissolve, their eyes hollow, their presence collapsing like smoke in the wind. And in that vanishing, you see what was hidden all along. Power has never been outside. It was always yours, concealed beneath layers of hesitation, buried under the ruins of doubt, disguised as obedient. What you feared most was not them. It was yourself, the unchained version of you that would no longer bow. The revelation strikes like lightning through bone. Before, you thought the world was built on walls. Now you see corridors where they never existed. Before, you thought strength belonged to those who granted access. Now you see strength as the refusal to wait. The transformation is brutal. A part of you dies here, the obedient self, the compliant shadow. But in its death, another emerges. You no longer carry the eyes of the prisoner. You carry the gaze of the one who walks through fire without asking who lit it. There is no gatekeeper. There never was. The forbidden was never forbidden. It was staged, orchestrated, a theater designed to keep you staring at the door instead of realizing you could walk through the wall. You feel the betrayal like a scar across your mind, but it does not break you. It remakes you. What once bound you now feeds you. What once silenced you now amplifies you. You do not need permission. You never did. The only force that ever mattered was the moment you chose to see it. And now you do. You stop waiting. The weight of silence that once chained you to hesitation collapses like ash in your hand. You no longer stand before the gate as an intruder. You stand within the ruins of its illusion. Where once you trembled, you now calculate. Every shadow, every wall, every whisper of denial becomes raw material for design. You begin to construct, not with permission, not with blessing, but with defiance carved into strategy. You shape keys out of absence. You carve corridors from refusal. You learn that access was never meant to be granted. It was always meant to be taken, rewritten, engineered by those who dared not to bow. You move with the precision of one betrayed too many times by promises of someday. The world told you to wait, to earn, to prove. But beneath their words was always a snare, the demand that you remain powerless while they fed on your restraint. Now you see it. Every denial, every closed door, every mocking silence was not proof of your unworthiness, but proof of their dependency on your obedience. The betrayal is sharp, but the revelation is sharper. They never held the keys. You did, and now you fashion them into weapons of entry. The shift is not gentle. It is violent, necessary, ancient. The architect you are becoming is not born from patience, but from fire. Fire that refuses to die, fire that remembers what it was before they tried to smother it. You build in the dark, not waiting for applause, not seeking validation, brick by invisible brick. You craft structures of access where others only see walls. You understand now that permission is a mirage. Power belongs to the one who dares to design pathways through silence. Where there was nothing, you sketch blueprints in your own blood. Where there was emptiness, you summon form. And as the design grows, so does the silence of those who once watched. Their eyes lose their weight. Their rules lose their grip. You walk among the ruins of their control and no longer flinch. The corridors you create stretch beyond their reach, twisting into shapes they cannot understand, chambers they cannot enter. You are no longer at the mercy of the system. They are at the mercy of what you choose to build beyond it. And that choice is a power they cannot touch. The air feels different now, as though the universe itself leans closer. There is no applause, no recognition, but something far greater, a resonance, a knowing that you have become the very architect of your own existence. Where before you stood in silence, waiting, you now move in thunder, reshaping the very landscape of access. You never asked, you never begged, you created. And the structure you leave behind is not just a doorway. It is proof that every lock, every denial, every forbidden threshold was always fragile in your hands. You return to the gate, though this time the air does not carry the weight of fear. Once, it towered above you like a sentence already passed, a wall of iron and silence that convinced you of your own smallness. You remember standing here with trembling hands, believing the world's lie that permission was the only currency of entry. That memory feels almost foreign now, like the shadow of someone who no longer exists. The gate has not changed, but you have. And it is that difference that makes all the difference. You approach slowly, not because of hesitation, but because you want to taste the moment, want to feel the contrast between what you once were and what you have become. The gate creaks in the wind, rust bleeding down its surface like old wound. It was built to intimidate, to project permanence, to convince the blind that barriers are eternal. But you no longer see steel. You see dust, a trick of architecture, a monument to obedience that only ever had power in your belief. The Watchers are gone now, or perhaps they were never there at all. You understand they were masks, reflections of your own doubt, projections of every voice that told you to wait, to beg, to stay small. Your hand touches the cold metal and it yields without resistance. No lock, no chain, no true defense. It dissolves in your grip, folding into mist as though it was ashamed of its own deception. The sound is not of iron breaking, but of silence collapsing. And in that silence, you recognize the betrayal all along. You had been held captive not by their rules, but by your faith in them. They never locked you out. You locked yourself in. That realization cuts deep, but it also cleanses. It is both a wound and a weapon. You step forward. The ground does not shake. The world does not collapse. Nothing strikes you down. Instead, the air shifts as if acknowledging your arrival. You do not walk like a trespasser now. You walk as one who belongs, not because belonging was given, but because you claimed it. What was once forbidden has become familiar. The threshold that once humiliated you now bows beneath your stride. Every step carries the weight of unspoken defiance, and yet it feels effortless, natural, inevitable. The gate stands behind you now, fading into irrelevance, and you realize there will be other gates, other walls, other illusions designed to convince you of your limits, but the truth is already written in your veins. You do not ask, you do not wait, you do not beg, you create, and creation makes you untouchable. The lesson is permanent, etched into you like ancient fire. You never needed their permission. You only needed to remember that you were always the key.